I, 30-year-old female, am getting married later this year to my wonderful fiance, 34-year-old male, and we sent out our invitations around 6 months ago. Most things are going well, but there's one small issue. I really regret inviting one of the guys from my office. I'll call him Greg. When I started my job about a year ago, Greg seemed fine, a little overly friendly, but I didn't get any weird vibes from him. We talk in the office and on Teams occasionally because we have one or two interests in common. When I told Greg I was getting married this year, he responded with the usual "congratulations," followed by something that implied he expected an invite. We had space, and again, he seemed like an okay guy, so an invite has been sent out to him. Recently, however, I've really started to regret inviting him. He started using weird terms of endearment when he messages me, like, "Hey sweetie," or "Hi angel," which did weird me out a bit, because those are the sorts of things my fiance calls me, but I brushed it off as just how he is. Then a few weeks ago, Greg messaged out of the blue to say he wished I lived closer to him so that we could hang out and get to know each other better. Again, I got a weird vibe. If I were single, I wouldn't be asking engaged guys I barely know to hang out. But hey, that's just me. He said similar things again since, and I've just kind of brushed it off. The final straw was a few days ago. He sent me a message asking where I live. I thought it was a bit odd. We hadn't been speaking that day, so it was out of nowhere. But he has my address from our wedding invite, so I reminded him of the town. He then told me that was close to a friend of his, and maybe he'd drop by sometime to bother me. This felt really strange to me, and so I told him directly not to just show up at my house. He assured me he wouldn't, but I guess we'll see on that front. I haven't raised this to my boss because I don't feel like he's done anything that constitutes harassment or the like. But I have discussed it with both my fiance and a close colleague, and they both said it's giving off creepy vibes. I know these things probably sound minor, but they've made me feel uncomfortable to be around this guy, and I dread every time I get a message from him. We don't work closely. We work for two separate companies owned by the same parent company, so I don't have to engage with him as part of my job. So I'm wondering if I would be the jerk if I uninvite him from my wedding. If not, any advice on how best to go about this would be hugely appreciated. Edit. Thank you everyone for your responses. I'll be advising Greg that he's no longer welcome at the wedding, though I'm not sure whether to stay vague about why or be more direct about the fact that it's his behavior that has gotten him uninvited. I will take the weekend to think about it. I'll also be contacting HR on Monday to make them aware of what's going on. I appreciate that this definitely could have been avoided had I stood up for myself better and not invited Greg in the first place. But hey, we live and learn. Now for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. Hey colleague, after careful consideration and discussion, my fiance and I had to make some tough decisions due to unforeseen circumstances and limitations with our wedding venue. Unfortunately, we've had to trim down our guest list significantly, and we won't be able to accommodate as many people as we initially hoped. As a result, we won't be able to include you as well as other friends that we had originally planned to invite. I hope you understand, and it's nothing personal against you. Thanks. Comment 2. You would not be the a-hole, but you are being an a-hole to yourself and the other women in your office who are probably also being sexually harassed by him or have in the past. His behavior isn't normal or appropriate for work conversations. Record everything, get screenshots, only speak with him in meetings with other people or via email. Create a trail of his misbehavior so HR knows what you've been dealing with. You are not the first woman he's done this to, and you won't be the last, regardless of whether or not he's invited to the wedding. Now, for the update. Thanks for sticking around for an update. Things took a turn for the worse with Greg. After I decided to uninvite Greg, I thought it would be a simple message and done. But boy, was I wrong. I sent him a polite text saying due to personal reasons, we had to revise the guest list, and unfortunately, we couldn't accommodate him at the wedding anymore. I expected some pushback, but nothing prepared me for his reaction. He blew up my phone with messages, asking why and saying he felt betrayed. It was like a switch flipped. The overly friendly guy turned aggressive. I was firm, didn't give details, just repeated that it was a personal decision. He didn't take it well and started spreading rumors at work about me, saying I led him on and then ditched him when I got what I wanted. It was a mess. My fiance was furious and wanted to confront him, but I didn't want to escalate things further. Instead, I went to HR as planned. They were understanding and started an investigation, but it was slow moving. Meanwhile, Greg's behavior was affecting my reputation at work. Then one day, Greg did something that changed everything. He sent an email to our entire office, including some big bosses, ranting about how unfair I was to him and how he deserved to be at my wedding. It was a long, rambling email that made everyone uncomfortable. That email was the last straw for HR. They took immediate action, and Greg was put on administrative leave pending the outcome of the investigation. With Greg out of the office, things started to calm down. My colleagues, who had been whispering behind my back, now saw the extent of his obsession, and many apologized for not taking my side sooner. It was a relief, but the damage to my professional relationships was done, and I had to work hard to rebuild trust. In the midst of all this, my fiancé and I had to focus on our wedding plans. We were behind schedule because of the drama, but our families and friends rallied around us. They helped us with the final preparations, and it was touching to see how much they supported us. The wedding day arrived, and it was beautiful. The ceremony was perfect, and the reception was a blast. Everyone had a great time, and for a few hours I forgot all about Greg and the stress he caused. It was a reminder of what was truly important, the love and commitment between my fiancé and me. After the wedding, I returned to work with a new perspective. I was more assertive and made it clear that I wouldn't tolerate inappropriate behavior. HR concluded their investigation, and Greg was let go. It was a tough situation for everyone involved, but I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. I learned a lot from this ordeal. I learned to trust my instincts and to stand up for myself. I also saw the power of community. My fiancé, friends, and family were my rock. And even though it was a rough ride, it ended with me marrying the love of my life, which is all I could have asked for. Thanks for reading about my roller coaster of a month. My wife's parents tried to control her birthday cake every year, but when they threatened to cut her off for choosing chocolate fudge over red velvet, I made sure they regretted ever trying to dictate our lives. My son Robbie, 25-year-old male, got married to my amazing daughter-in-law Ella, 25-year-old female, last year. They met and started dating in college, and Robbie brought Ella home that first Christmas they were together, and she became part of the family immediately. She opened up to me on a couple of occasions before the wedding that her family were not the greatest people and that she had a very difficult relationship with them. Ella's parents were incredibly hard on her. My son even mentioned being shocked at how they spoke to Ella sometimes. They also put themselves before Ella. I saw their treatment of her firsthand at the wedding. It was disgusting. Something Ella truly loves is chocolate fudge cake. She never got to have it while her parents were present because neither of them likes chocolate. They wouldn't even allow her to have a chocolate cake for her birthday. It was always their favorite red velvet cake that was decorated like it belonged to an adult and not a child. Even after Ella left home, she felt pressured to conform and get a red velvet cake for her birthday. Robbie encouraged her to get the cake she wanted, but she would always tell him it wasn't worth the fight. I always loved baking, and baking for my family is something very important to me. I always try to make a chocolate fudge cake for Ella because of her love for them. She has always said they're her favorite because they're made with love, and she appreciates that more than anything. So Ella turned 25 last weekend, and she had a party with both her family and ours and friends. Robbie was upset on her behalf that Ella was being pressured into having the red velvet cake again for her parents. So I stepped in and asked Ella if she would be okay with me making her cake, and I told her I would be making her cake. The chocolate fudge cake she loves so much. She wasn't sure at first, but then she told me she'd love that. I told her that she can blame me 100% if her parents complain. I also added that she deserves better than being treated that way. I made her the chocolate fudge cake. Ella was so happy. Her parents were not. I immediately intervened when I saw they were about to scold Ella for her cake, and I told them I had made it and I had wanted it to be Ella's favorite. They asked me who I thought I was and told me their daughter always had red velvet birthday cakes, and that is how it was supposed to be. They huffed and puffed like children for the rest of the party, and then I got a few text messages from them with complaints about my actions. Ella also didn't escape their anger. She told me it was not my fault, but she admitted she was having a hard time dealing with the fallout. Robbie was able to encourage Ella to start some therapy, so she can learn how to navigate things with her parents better. So she's hunting for one as I type this. Her parents have not let up, and they are being so unreasonable. They are also still furious with me. Their anger at Ella is where my guilt comes in and where I have to ask, am I the jerk, Aita? Now for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. She told me it was not my fault, but she admitted she was having a hard time dealing with the fallout. Fallout over cake. How petty and immature are Ella's parents? Good Lord, not the idiot, and bring chocolate cake to every event you're invited to, and even the events you're not invited to. Have chocolate cake delivered to their Airbnb when they travel on vacation. Bring on the chocolate fudge blitz. Abe, always be escalating over stuff this petty. Comment 2. Not the idiot, but maybe you ought to call her parents and tell them to back the frick up. She deserves better. She deserves you. Maybe talk to her about going low contact while doing therapy so she has time to heal without their negativity overshadowing her. Sorry you are all going through this, but you are awesome. Keep up the super amazing work. Now for the update, thanks for sticking around. A lot has happened since the last post. Last week, Ella's parents did something that really got under my skin. They sent Ella a birthday present, a book on etiquette, and a note saying, maybe now you'll learn proper manners. Can you believe that? After everything, they still had the nerve to pull a stunt like that. Ella was crushed and Robbie was fuming. He wanted to confront them, but Ella begged him not to, saying it would only make things worse. Then 2 days ago, Ella's mom called me. She said they wanted to make amends and invited us over for dinner. I was skeptical, but Ella was hopeful, so we agreed. The dinner was tense, to say the least. Halfway through, Ella's dad announced that he was retiring and they were planning to move closer to us. Ella nearly choked on her water. They said it was to be closer to family, but the look in their eyes told a different story. They wanted control, and this was their way of keeping Ella under their thumb. Ella was quiet the whole ride home. Robbie tried to cheer her up, but it was no use. She felt trapped, like she was being pulled back into a life she tried so hard to escape. I told her we'd figure it out together, but I could see the fear in her eyes. The next day, Ella did something unexpected. She went to her parents' house alone. She came back with a small box and a look of determination. Inside the box was her old diary. She showed us entries from when she was a teenager, her dreams, her fears, and her parents' relentless pressure. It was heartbreaking. She said she needed us to understand why she couldn't let them move closer. Robbie hugged her, and I felt a mix of pride and sorrow. My son's wife, the girl I'd come to love as my own, was standing up for herself, but at what cost? Yesterday, the situation escalated. Ella's parents showed up unannounced, furious about the diary. They accused her of betrayal and disrespect. It was a mess. Robbie stood between them and Ella, telling them they needed to leave. They left, but not before hissing a threat to cut Ella off financially, something they'd held over her head for years. Ella broke down after they left. She said she'd rather be cut off than live in fear. Robbie supported her decision, and I did too, but I couldn't help but worry about the ramifications. They had always used money to manipulate her, and now she was walking away from that safety net. Today, Ella made another bold move. She called her parents and told them she was done playing by their rules. She said she didn't want their money or their version of love. There was a long silence on the other end of the line, and then her mother started crying, saying they only wanted what was best for her. Ella didn't buy it. She hung up and turned to us, a mix of relief and terror on her face. Robbie and I are doing everything we can to support her. We're looking into financial options and emotional support. It's going to be a tough road, but Ella's finally taking control of her life. I just hope she knows what she's getting into, accepting this terrible situation as her new reality. Thanks for reading. My bio dad left us when I was 12 and chose my stepsister over me. So when he tried to walk me down the aisle, I told him no and gave the honor to my stepdad, who's been my real dad for 15 years. I, 27-year-old female, asked my stepdad, 52-year-old male, to walk me down the aisle instead of my biological father, 54-year-old male. Let me start from the beginning. When I was 12, my dad divorced my mom and left us. My mom had full custody, but I still wanted a relationship with my dad. He lived a 5-hour train ride away. So every Friday for 6 years, I'd ride the train for 5 hours to go visit him. And I was happy doing that because I loved my dad. When I was 14, my dad married my stepmom. She had an 18-year-old daughter. I got along okay with my stepmom, but never really saw my stepsister because she was at college, which was a 4-hour flight away. When I was 15, my mom married my stepdad, and he was amazing. He loved me unconditionally and always made an effort to attend all my athletics and important moments. But I still would see my dad on the weekends because I loved him. At that time, I thought everything was great. I had a huge family and loved everyone. When I was 18, I asked my dad if he would come to my high school graduation on a Saturday 2 months away. He said yes. 2 months went by, and it's the week before my graduation. My dad called me and said he can't go to my graduation because my stepsister's is on Friday before mine. The thing was, he'd have time to go to hers Friday and catch a flight and still go to mine Saturday. He told me he didn't want to do that because we aren't that close, and I never made an effort to be close to him, so why should he? He said he liked my stepsister better and had a better relationship with her. I was crushed. We didn't speak for 5 years. I focused on school, which my stepdad paid for. I got great grades, and he'd always be the first to congratulate me. 3 years ago, my dad got divorced again. He cheated on my stepmom, and she and her daughter cut off all ties with my dad. In that time, he wanted to reconnect with me. I agreed. We had an okay relationship. I'd see him maybe 2-3 times a year. Now I'm getting married in 6 months and asked my stepdad to walk me down the aisle. He has no other children, he can't have his own kids, and has been a real father to me for over a decade. I told my dad that he would be invited but would not be walking with me. He was upset and told me I was being selfish and taking away the only opportunity he'd have to walk his daughter down the aisle, that I was ungrateful for everything he has done for me. I didn't feel like a jerk, but my stepdad said he would be fine sharing the moment with my dad and doesn't want me to have any regrets in the future. But I'm not sure if I want him to have to share the moment. He is the one who put in the work for that moment, not my dad. So am I the jerk? Should I let my dad walk also? Now for a few comments before the update. Comment 1, not the idiot. Ultimately, it's your decision. If you want to justify this one, he told me he didn't want to do that because we aren't that close and I never made an effort to be close to him. So why should he? He said he liked my stepsister better and had a better relationship with her. I mean, damn. Notice that his objection now is about his feelings, not yours. Your stepdad is being gracious as frick right now, which speaks so highly of him. Blood relations and family are often two different things. Comment 2, not the idiot and don't have absentee dad walk down the aisle. It's generous enough of you to invite him. He told me he didn't want to do that because we aren't that close and I never made an effort to be close to him. So why should he? He said he liked my stepsister better and had a better relationship with her. Just repeat Bio Dad's words back to him verbatim. He has never appreciated your one-sided efforts to maintain a relationship, and after gaslighting you, deserves very little. Now for the update, thank you for tuning in again. So the wedding planning was going full steam ahead and things were getting tense. My stepdad, he's been nothing but supportive, but I could tell he was hurt by the idea of sharing the aisle walk. He never says much, but I know him well enough to see it in his eyes. Meanwhile, my biological dad was laying it on thick, calling me up, trying to guilt me into changing my mind. He kept saying how he's changed, how he regrets the past. But words are just words, right? Now here's where it gets messy. My mom, she's always been the problem solver, and she sat me down for a talk. She told me about how, after the divorce, my stepdad would stay up late worrying about me, how he'd be the one to comfort her when my dad let me down. I never knew that. She said my stepdad might be quiet, but walking me down the aisle meant the world to him. It was like a punch to the gut, realizing how much he cared and how little I knew about his feelings. Then 2 days ago, my dad did something that just blew up everything. He showed up unannounced at my stepdad's work, causing a scene, demanding they talk about the wedding. My stepdad, he's a private guy, hates any kind of drama. He was mortified, and it got back to me that he was so shaken up, he had to take the rest of the day off. That's when I knew I couldn't let my dad bully his way into this. Yesterday, I made my decision. I called my dad and told him straight up he wouldn't be walking me down the aisle. I said it wasn't about punishing him, but about honoring the man who'd been there for me every step of the way. My dad, he didn't take it well. He accused me of choosing my stepdad over him. of erasing him from my life. But I stood my ground. It was one of the hardest things I've ever done, but it felt right. Today I sat down with my stepdad and told him he'd be the one to walk me down the aisle. No sharing, no compromises. The look on his face, it was like a mix of relief and pride. He hugged me, and for the first time in a long while, I saw him tear up. It was a quiet moment, but it spoke volumes. It was clear that this meant more to him than he'd ever let on. So that's where we're at. The wedding's still on track, and my stepdad's walking me down the aisle. My biological dad, he's still invited to the wedding, but I haven't heard from him since our call. I'm not sure if he'll come, but I've made peace with that. It's been pretty tough, but I'm ready to start this new chapter with the people who've truly been there for me. Thank you for reading. If you like this video, you'll probably like these too. Also, while you're here, please consider subscribing. It's your support that keeps this channel alive and allows me to make better and longer videos. Have a great day.